Ever felt completely drained, without knowing why? It's not the long hours, the late nights, or the endless tasks. It's someone who quietly chips away at your energy. Masked in politeness, disguised as concern. They don't hurt your body, they wear down your soul. Toxic people rarely shout at you. They show up as friends, co-workers, even family, armed with honest advice and good intentions. But beneath the surface lies a power game, a game designed to blur your boundaries, shake your confidence, and make you second-guess your worth. What keeps you stuck isn't them, it's how you react to them. You can't change who they are, but you can change how you respond, how you set your limits. Protect your peace, and take back control, and that's when transformation begins. In today's video, you'll discover 10 brutally honest yet deeply practical ways to deal with toxic people, not by confronting them directly, but by reclaiming your energy, your clarity, and your self-respect. From mastering the power of forgiving without forgetting, to walking away without a single word, each principle is grounded in Stoic wisdom, tailored for the emotional battles we all face in everyday life. This isn't about theory, this is about mental survival, emotional strength, and building an inner world where toxicity has no place. Let's begin with the first rule: forgive, but don't forget. 1. Forgive, but don't forget. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. Some believe it's a sign of weakness, as if letting go of anger means letting someone off the hook. As if forgiveness means welcoming back the person who hurt you, pretending like nothing ever happened. But that's not what real forgiveness is. It's not about excusing the behavior or giving second chances to someone who shattered your trust. It's about something much deeper, freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. I learned this lesson the hard way. Years ago, I had a friend I trusted more than anyone. Let's call them Alex. We shared everything: laughs, dreams, secrets. One day, I opened up to Alex about something deeply personal, something I had never told anyone else. I trusted them to hold that part of me with care. But within a week, not only had they shared it, they twisted the story to make me look like a fool. The betrayal hit like a storm. It wasn't just the lie, it was the shattering of a bond I thought was unbreakable. For months, the anger lived inside me. Every time I saw Alex's face, heard their name, or remembered the conversation, the wound reopened. It poisoned my days, clouded my judgment, and weighed on my spirit. And the most painful part? Alex had moved on. They were living their life, smiling, joking, carefree. Meanwhile, I was still stuck in a cycle of pain, not because of what happened, but because I refused to let it go. Then I came across a quote that cracked something open in me. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's exactly what I was doing, holding onto my rage, hoping it would somehow balance the scales, somehow make Alex feel what I was feeling. But it never worked. I wasn't punishing them, I was punishing myself. And so, I forgave, not for them, but for me. I didn't call them. I didn't write some grand message of reconciliation. I simply made peace in my own heart. I stopped carrying the pain, the bitterness, the constant inner monologue replaying the betrayal. I let it go, but I didn't forget. That memory became a scar, not to remind me of the hurt, but to remind me of the lesson. A lesson about boundaries, about trust, about who deserves access to the most vulnerable parts of me. You see, forgiveness is a form of power. It's the decision to reclaim your emotional energy, to choose freedom over fixation. But forgetting? That's dangerous. Forgetting opens the door for the same wound to happen again. Forgetting means you walk into the same fire twice, expecting not to get burned. Stoicism teaches us to observe reality as it is, not through the lens of emotion. And reality is simple. Some people are not safe. Some people, once they show you who they are, should not get another chance. Imagine forgiveness like healing a deep cut. You clean the wound, you tend to it, and eventually, it scars over. You're no longer in pain. But the scar stays, not as a mark of weakness, but as proof that you endured. And more importantly, that you learned. You don't keep pressing on the scar to reopen it, but you also don't pretend it was never there. This isn't about holding grudges or building walls. It's about emotional intelligence, knowing that you can move forward without bitterness and without naivety. You can be open to life again, to connection again, while still honoring the wisdom of what you've survived. There's strength in walking away from resentment. There's clarity in knowing that you don't need revenge or validation to heal. But most of all, there's self-respect in remembering, because the past is your teacher, not your jailer. And every scar you carry with grace is a symbol of growth, not defeat. So forgive, not to make peace with them, but to make peace with yourself. And don't forget, not because you're bitter, but because you're wiser now. Let that be your shield, not your burden. Let it guide your choices. Because when you choose to forgive but not forget, you're not holding on to the pain. You're holding on to the truth. And in a world filled with noise and manipulation, holding on to the truth is a revolutionary act. 2. Limit their access. Not everyone deserves front row access to your life. That may sound harsh, even cold, but it's a truth that will save your energy, your sanity, and your future. Some people take your time, your focus, your emotional bandwidth, without ever giving anything back. And the longer you allow it, the more you teach them that your boundaries are optional. The truth is, love, history, or bloodlines don't grant someone the right to drain you. Whether it's a lifelong friend, a close family member, or a colleague you've known for years. The rule remains the same: protect your peace at all costs. There was a time when I thought being available made me a good person. If someone needed to vent, I listened. If they wanted something, I said yes. If they crossed a line, I convinced myself they didn't mean it. But eventually, I found myself emotionally exhausted, constantly pulled in 1,000 directions, yet feeling invisible in all of them. That's when I had to face a hard realization. My peace was being destroyed. Not by enemies, but by people I gave too much access to. Limiting someone's access to your life doesn't mean you hate them. It means you value yourself enough to create space between you and those who abuse your kindness. It's about saying, I see how you show up in my life, and I get to decide what role you play. The most toxic people aren't always the loudest or most obvious. Sometimes, they're the ones you feel obligated to tolerate. They call when it's convenient for them, unload their problems, drain your spirit, then disappear, only to return when they need something again. And yet, out of guilt, habit, or fear of conflict, we keep letting them back in. But here's the truth. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Start by paying attention to how you feel after interactions. If someone leaves you feeling heavy, anxious, or mentally depleted every time, that's not just a coincidence, that's a pattern. And patterns don't lie. You don't have to make a grand announcement or burn bridges. Often, the most powerful boundaries are silent. You can answer calls less frequently. You can keep conversations short, surface level, polite, but not open-ended. You can share less, reveal less, invite less. These small shifts send a message louder than any confrontation. My energy is sacred. And you no longer have unlimited access to it. I had a colleague once who thrived on gossip and drama. Every lunch break was an invitation into their latest complaints, their conspiracies, their negativity. At first, I played along to be polite. Then I realized I was absorbing their chaos, letting it bleed into my mood, my focus, my day. One afternoon, when they tried to pull me in again with, "You won't believe what happened," I just smiled and said, "I'm staying out of it today." They looked confused. But you know what happened after that? They stopped trying. Not immediately, but eventually. They learned I wasn't available for their dysfunction anymore. When you limit access, some people will call you distant. Some may even say you've changed. Let them. Change is exactly the point. You're evolving. You're choosing to create circles of access, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Think of your life like a private event. Some people get all access passes. Some get balcony seats. And others? They don't make the guest list at all. That doesn't make you cruel, it makes you clear. The Stoics believed that you should guard your mind and your peace as if they were treasures. Because they are. And every person you let too far in has the power to either protect that peace or destroy it. Limiting someone's access isn't about punishment, it's about preservation. Your time, your presence, your attention, these are your most valuable resources. Don't hand them over without discernment. Here's the part most people miss. The moment you start valuing yourself, the world adjusts accordingly. The right people will respect your boundaries. The wrong ones will either fall away or expose their true intentions. Either outcome is a win. You'll no longer live in reaction to the needs and moods of others. You'll begin living in alignment with your own values, grounded, intentional, free. Make no mistake, setting boundaries is not easy. It will challenge your old patterns, your guilt, your fear of being misunderstood. But once you feel the freedom it brings, the clarity, the confidence, the quiet, you'll never go back. You'll look around and realize that your life feels lighter, cleaner, more authentic, not because you became colder, but because you became wiser. And that wisdom? It begins with one decision. Not everyone gets access to you. 3. Use humor to disarm them. Toxic people feed on conflict. They wait for your irritation, your frustration, your outrage, because those reactions give them exactly what they crave: control. They poke, prod, and provoke until you explode. And then they twist your response to make you look unstable, overreactive, or weak. But there's a secret weapon most people overlook: humor. A well-placed, calm, clever line has the power to dismantle their game faster than any angry comeback. Because humor confuses them, it steals the oxygen from their fire and puts you back in control. Think about it. When someone tries to embarrass you in front of others or throw a passive-aggressive jab your way, they're expecting you to take the bait. Maybe you get defensive. Maybe you argue. Maybe you withdraw and let the pain simmer in silence. But what if, instead of reacting emotionally, you smiled and said something they didn't expect, something that made others laugh, something that made their insult bounce off like rubber? Suddenly, they're no longer the center of attention. You are, and not because you played their game, but because you rewrote the rules on the spot. I remember a coworker who made it their mission to comment on everything, people's clothes, their tone of voice, even how they typed. One day, they glanced at my desk and said, "Wow, this place looks like a tornado hit it." Without blinking, I smiled and said, "Absolutely. It's called organized chaos." Einstein would be proud. People around us laughed. The tension broke. Their moment of superiority turned into a moment of awkward silence. And that was the last time they mentioned my desk. That's the power of humor, not as a defense, but as a silent rebellion. A light-hearted sword that slices through passive aggression without shedding a drop of blood. Humor works because it shifts the dynamic. It tells the toxic person, "You don't get to control how I feel." It shows the people watching that you're composed, confident, and not easily rattled. And most importantly, it shows you that you don't have to get dirty to win. You can stay light and still be powerful. But here's the catch: the humor must be tasteful. This isn't sarcasm meant to cut. It's wit designed to diffuse. You're not fighting back. You're dancing around their attack and letting them trip over their own bitterness. When someone keeps interrupting you, instead of snapping, try, "Are we co-hosting this conversation now?" Or if they mock you with a smile, respond with, "You must be exhausted carrying all that judgment around." It's calm, cheeky, and piercing, without ever being cruel. It draws a line, not with anger, but with clarity and charm. Now, you might think this is avoiding the real issue, but actually, it's the opposite. It's facing the moment head-on without giving the toxic person what they want. They want to shake you. They want you flustered, off balance, emotionally tangled. But when you respond with ease and cleverness, it sends a loud message. You are unbothered and unbreakable. Humor also protects your energy. When you laugh, even internally, it reminds your nervous system that this isn't a threat, it's just noise. It keeps you from spiraling. It keeps you rooted. And eventually, it teaches them something they weren't ready for, that you can't be controlled by chaos. Of course, there are moments when humor won't work. When someone crosses serious boundaries, humor is not the tool, firmness is. But in many social, professional, or subtle manipulative situations, humor gives you the upper hand without creating an argument. It's strength dressed in lightness. The Stoics teach us to remain grounded, not just in silence, but in composure. Humor is one of the most underrated forms of composure. It's saying, "I see your attempt to disturb me, and I choose not to be disturbed." It keeps your dignity intact. It keeps your mind sharp. And it makes you untouchable in the eyes of those who try to pull you down. When used with intention, humor doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. You stop seeing toxic behavior as something to fear. And instead, you begin to navigate it like a master of emotional strategy. You stop letting words stick. You stop letting their darkness enter your space. You walk away lighter, calmer, and even a little entertained. Because when you can laugh in the face of toxicity, not cruelly, but cleverly, you've already won. 4. Know when to walk away. One of the boldest, most loving decisions you will ever make is to walk away, not out of spite, not out of rage, but because your well-being matters more than staying loyal to chaos. Sometimes, the most powerful form of strength isn't fighting harder or enduring longer. It's recognizing when a relationship has crossed the invisible line between challenge and damage. When giving someone chance after chance no longer feels noble. It feels like self-betrayal. That's when you know it's time to walk away. The idea of walking away is uncomfortable. We're conditioned to believe that holding on makes us strong, especially when it's family, old friends, or people we've invested years into. We're told to fix, forgive, and stay because leaving means failure. But what if the real failure is staying in spaces where we're constantly diminished, disregarded, or emotionally manipulated? What if true courage is choosing peace over history, sanity over obligation? I once had a close friend who lit up every room, charming, social, magnetic. Everyone adored them, but in private, it was a different story. Every conversation revolved around their drama. Every interaction drained me. If I opened up about my struggles, they'd shift the focus back to themselves or subtly downplay my pain. I kept telling myself, they're just going through a tough time. But the truth was, I was the one breaking in silence while they remained oblivious, or worse, indifferent. The final straw came during a personal crisis. I reached out, vulnerable and in need, and they responded with, "I'm kinda dealing with my own stuff right now." That was it. The clarity hit like lightning. This wasn't friendship. This was emotional neglect wearing a familiar face. Walking away didn't mean I hated them. It meant I finally loved myself enough to stop bleeding for someone who wouldn't even offer a bandage. It wasn't a dramatic farewell or a bitter message. It was subtle. I started answering less, giving less, caring less, not out of revenge, but because my peace was no longer up for negotiation. Slowly, they faded into the background, and something beautiful happened. I felt lighter. I could breathe again. People often think that to walk away, you must burn the bridge. But walking away isn't always about cutting someone off completely. Sometimes, it's just about repositioning them in your life. From center stage to the distant outskirts. From constant presence to occasional memory. It's the quiet, consistent decision to stop letting their words dictate your emotions or their chaos control your energy. The most controversial part? Sometimes the person you need to walk away from shares your DNA. Society loves to preach that family is everything, and yes, family can be beautiful, but only when it's healthy. Blood doesn't grant someone a license to wound you repeatedly. If someone uses guilt, control, or emotional blackmail under the banner of, "we're family," that's not love. That's manipulation dressed in tradition. Walking away doesn't mean you wish them harm. It means you no longer wish to harm yourself for their comfort. It means you understand that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. It's not cold. It's clarity. It's not rejection. It's redirection toward healing, wholeness, in spaces where you're valued. The Stoics believed in detachment, not because they lacked emotion, but because they understood that freedom begins when you release what no longer serves your soul. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not walking away to escape. You're walking away to reclaim your identity, your time, your peace, and most of all, your right to joy. If someone constantly makes you feel small, confused, or emotionally exhausted, ask yourself, is staying helping me grow? Or is it slowly eroding who I am? The answer will whisper the truth, and when it does, honor it, because the moment you walk away, you make space for something greater. New people, new energy, new strength. You're not abandoning anyone, you're choosing yourself, and sometimes, that's the most revolutionary act of all. When you walk away from what's breaking you, you walk toward everything that can build you. Don't be afraid to leave behind what no longer aligns with the life you're trying to create. You're not being selfish, you're being free. And that choice? That's not just brave, that's transformational. 5. Surround yourself with uplifting people. When you're constantly surrounded by negativity, it doesn't just wear you down, it begins to shape how you see yourself, how you think, and even how you move through the world. Toxic people plant seeds of doubt, fear, and insecurity, and if you're not careful, you'll start to believe that everyone is out to compete, judge, or manipulate. That's why surrounding yourself with uplifting people isn't just a feel-good suggestion. It's a survival strategy for your soul. Uplifting people are like emotional oxygen. They don't just make you feel better in the moment, they restore your clarity, remind you of your worth, and encourage the version of you that you're still becoming. These are the ones who celebrate your growth without jealousy, who listen without interrupting, and who offer truth without cruelty. They don't walk ahead of you or behind you, they walk beside you, silently rooting for your success, even when the world isn't watching. There was a time in my life when I didn't even realize I was surrounded by the wrong energy. I was used to being around people who offered backhanded compliments, who laughed at my dreams instead of encouraging them, who made every conversation about competition rather than connection. And for the longest time, I thought that was normal. I thought friendship was supposed to feel heavy. Until one day, I met someone different, someone who looked me in the eye and said, "You're capable of more than you give yourself credit for." No hidden agenda, no sarcasm, just truth, spoken with kindness. That one moment cracked something open inside me. I realized I had been starving for real connection. When you're surrounded by uplifting people, you begin to evolve, not because they fix you, but because they reflect back the strongest parts of who you are. Their presence becomes a mirror, not of your flaws, but of your strength, your courage, your potential, and slowly, the noise of toxicity fades. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself or guard your heart at every turn. You feel safe, you feel seen. But this kind of support doesn't just fall into your lap. You have to be intentional. You have to seek it, protect it, and most of all, reciprocate it. Find people who inspire you, not just in their achievements, but in their energy, their integrity, their way of carrying themselves. Build bonds with those who challenge you to grow but never make you feel small. And be willing to let go of relationships that don't align with the person you're working to become. That might mean walking away from familiar circles. It might mean fewer phone calls, fewer invitations, fewer group chats, but what you lose in quantity, you gain tenfold in quality. Depth will always matter more than frequency. A single conversation with someone who truly gets you is more valuable than 100 shallow interactions. Don't waste your light trying to brighten spaces that were never meant for you. The Stoics believed that your environment is part of your discipline. Just as you train your mind and your habits, you must also train your surroundings. Choose who speaks into your life, who shares your time, who earns a seat at your table. And remember, being surrounded by uplifting people isn't just about receiving. It's about showing up as that person. 2. Be the one who listens deeply, who lifts others without needing recognition, who encourages without expecting anything in return. This kind of energy is rare, and when you find it, protect it like treasure, because the world will always have noise, critics, and chaos. But when you're anchored by people who see your heart, who remind you of your power, and who reflect back your highest self, nothing external can shake you. Here's the truth. You weren't meant to walk this path alone. No one climbs their mountain without someone believing in them. Sometimes it's a mentor. Sometimes it's a quiet friend. Sometimes it's a stranger whose words come at exactly the right time. But whoever they are, hold them close. Build a tribe where growth is celebrated, not threatened, where authenticity is welcomed, not mocked, where love doesn't demand perfection, but presence. Because when you surround yourself with uplifting people, you rise without even realizing it. And when your circle becomes your strength, you no longer fight the darkness, you shine through it. That's not just powerful, that's freedom. 6. Refuse to engage in their games. Toxic people are master manipulators. They create chaos not because they're confused, but because they crave control. Stirring drama, spreading whispers, twisting narratives. It's all part of a calculated game designed to pull you into their emotional battlefield. The rules are always shifting. The goalposts always move. And once you're inside their world, you'll find yourself defending things you never did, questioning things you never said, and feeling exhausted by battles you never signed up for. That's why the smartest move isn't to win their game, it's to refuse to play altogether. Walking away from an argument doesn't mean you've lost. Staying calm in the face of provocation doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, these are signs of someone who understands a deeper truth, that peace is a form of power. And silence can be the loudest answer. When someone tries to bait you with sarcasm, passive-aggressive jabs, or emotional blackmail, they're not looking for truth. They're looking for reaction. And every time you take that bait, they tighten their grip. The only way to truly free yourself is to remain grounded, to break the cycle by choosing clarity over chaos. I once had a family member who lived for conflict. They'd show up to gatherings ready to stir the pot, throw out barbed comments masked as jokes, then sit back and watch the room unravel. For years, I tried to meet them halfway. I'd explain myself, stay calm, try to reason, but every time, it only fueled their fire. Until one day, I stopped. They made another dig, and I just smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion." That was it. No follow-up, no defense, just calm, clear disengagement, and you could see the frustration hit. They weren't getting the emotional reaction they wanted. The power dynamic had shifted. Not because I fought harder, but because I stopped dancing to their rhythm. Toxic people want you emotionally entangled. They thrive when you yell, cry, chase them for closure, or try to prove your worth. But when you step back, not out of fear, but from strength, they lose control. You become unpredictable, unshakable, unreadable. And that's the one thing they can't stand. Because if they can't control how you feel, they can't control what you do. The key is to respond with intention, not emotion. When you feel triggered, take a breath, pause, remind yourself, this is their storm. I don't have to get wet. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Other times, a calm phrase like, I'm not going to argue about this, or, let's talk when you're ready to be respectful, draws the line clearly without escalating the situation. The less attention you give their drama, the less oxygen it has to grow. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become strategic. You set firm boundaries. You limit access. You guard your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control external events or people, only our response. That's your battleground. That's where you reclaim your power. There's something deeply liberating about refusing to be a character in someone else's performance. When you stop playing their game, you also stop seeking their approval. You stop explaining your value to someone who's already decided to misunderstand you. And in that space, you rediscover something precious, your stillness, your emotional independence, your clarity. Of course, some people will accuse you of being cold or distant when you refuse to engage. Let them. That's just their last attempt to reel you back in. Don't fall for it. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're disciplined. And that's something they were never prepared for. When you consistently refuse to participate in their games, something remarkable happens. They either back off, or they expose themselves more obviously to others. Either way, you've protected your energy, your dignity, and your peace. You've chosen to operate from a place of calm awareness instead of reactive chaos. And that choice? It's what sets strong minds apart from fragile egos. Remember, your silence is not weakness. Your stillness is not surrender. It's proof that you've elevated beyond their noise. And when you live from that place, calm, grounded, focused, no one can drag you into their storm unless you hand them the keys. Refuse, reclaim, rise. 7. Stay focused on your purpose. Toxic people have a strange superpower. They know how to pull your attention away from what truly matters. Through criticism, drama, and subtle manipulation, they hijack your emotional energy and drag you into distractions that serve no purpose. They'll question your goals, mock your progress, and inject chaos at the very moments you're about to level up. And if you're not grounded in your purpose, you'll fall for it. You'll find yourself spending more time defending your choices than actually living them. But when your focus becomes unshakable, their noise becomes background static, irrelevant, powerless, and easy to ignore. Purpose is clarity. It's the invisible thread that holds your vision, your energy, and your identity together. It's not about some grand mission you have to shout from rooftops. It's about knowing why you wake up, why you move, why you create. Toxic people can't survive in that space. They feed off confusion, off your need to explain yourself, off your willingness to be pulled into their orbit. But when your purpose is clear, you stop orbiting others and start building your own universe. I once worked with someone who was the walking definition of distraction. They complained daily, gossiped non-stop, and always seemed to invite drama into every room they entered. At first, I got caught in the loop, replying out of politeness, listening out of habit, getting emotionally drained by conversations that led nowhere. Until one day, I realized I had spent over an hour in a mental fog. All because I let someone else's chaos pull me off course. That's when I decided, no more. I started showing up differently. No long replies, no deep involvement, just a firm boundary and full focus on my work. And something incredible happened. My productivity skyrocketed. My creativity returned. My energy felt like mine again. The difference wasn't in them. It was in where I chose to place my attention. Staying focused on your purpose doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means filtering what deserves access to your time, your thoughts, and your heart. It means choosing clarity over chaos, direction over distraction. When you're locked in on your path, the noise around you loses power. The insults, the doubts, the manipulative guilt trips, they bounce off you because your inner compass is too strong to be shaken by outside noise. Toxic people often sense when you're about to rise. That's when they become most aggressive. Not because they care, but because your elevation threatens their illusion of control. They'll call you selfish for choosing your path. They'll label you arrogant for setting boundaries. They'll paint themselves as victims of your focus. But here's the truth. Your purpose doesn't require their permission. It requires your discipline, and that discipline is your protection. You protect your peace by building something that matters. You protect your energy by reminding yourself that not every battle deserves your attention. And you protect your soul by anchoring it to something greater than the opinions of those who don't understand you. Purpose keeps you rooted when life gets noisy. It gives you a reason to stay grounded when everything around you is trying to stir up emotional storms. The Stoics believed in living according to nature, in other words, fulfilling the function you were made for. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will clap for you. Some will even try to slow you down just to make themselves feel better. But if you let those people define your pace, you'll never reach the summit you were meant for. Your purpose is yours, and when you walk in it fully, you become untouchable. Here's the deeper truth. When you're focused on your purpose, you don't just avoid toxic people, you outgrow them. You begin to operate from a frequency that no longer resonates with gossip, games, or guilt. Your time becomes sacred, your energy becomes intentional, and your silence? It speaks volumes. You're not ignoring them, you're just busy building a life they can't interfere with anymore. Let your actions speak for you. Let your work reflect your vision. Let your calm defy their chaos. Because when your mind is fixed on something greater, distractions fade. You're not cold, you're committed. You're not distant, you're disciplined. And that mindset is what separates people who get pulled around by the world from those who shape it. Stay focused, build in silence, and let your success echo through the spaces where their words once tried to hold you back. 8. Avoid gossiping about them. Gossiping about toxic people might feel like justice in the moment, a way to reclaim your voice, to warn others, or to release the anger that's been burning inside you. It feels satisfying, like you're finally getting the upper hand. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Every time you speak about them behind their back, you're still giving them space in your life. You're keeping their presence alive through your words. And what feels like power is actually a trap. one that slowly pulls you back into the very cycle you're trying to escape. Toxic people crave attention, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. They thrive on knowing they're the topic of your conversation. Even if you're tearing them apart, you're still feeding them your energy, your focus, your time, all poured into a person who never deserved it in the first place. And the worst part? Gossip doesn't just stain their name. It stains yours. It lowers your vibration, dilutes your character, and ties you to drama you claimed you wanted no part of. That's not empowerment. That's entanglement in disguise. There was a time when I fell into this pattern without even noticing. I had a coworker who made life miserable for everyone, manipulative, rude, always stirring up tension. During breaks, a few of us would vent about them. It started as harmless, just sharing stories, letting off steam, but soon, it became a ritual. Every lunch break turned into a gossip session. And one day, I realized something. I left those conversations feeling worse, not better. The negativity clung to me. Their toxic energy was now circulating in my words, my mood, my mindset. They weren't just taking up space in the office. They were taking up space in my head, and I was the one handing them the keys. That was the moment I chose something different. I stopped mentioning their name unless it was absolutely necessary. I redirected conversations. I replaced complaints with solutions. And as I did, something shifted. My clarity returned. My energy felt cleaner. I wasn't tangled in their chaos anymore, because I stopped inviting it into my thoughts and words. Avoiding gossip isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about refusing to relive the damage over and over again. It's about protecting your energy, your reputation, and your peace. Gossip chains you to their dysfunction. Silence breaks the chain. You don't have to defend yourself in every room they try to poison. The truth has a way of revealing itself. And your calm restraint speaks louder than any accusation ever could. Instead of gossip, choose elevation. Channel your frustration into growth. Focus on building a life that makes their behavior irrelevant. When others gossip, shift the subject. When you're tempted to rant, pause and ask, is this helping me heal, or is it just reactivating my pain? There's a world of difference between venting to process and gossiping to punish. Know the line, honor it. The Stoics believed in protecting one's character above all else. Not just what you do when people are watching, but how you carry yourself when no one is. That includes how you speak about others, even the ones who hurt you. Especially the ones who hurt you. Because your words are a reflection of your values. And when you choose restraint over revenge, you show the world, and yourself, what real strength looks like. They may talk, they may twist, they may continue playing the villain in your story. But don't let them write your script. Your dignity, your calm, your refusal to engage, that's your story now. You don't need to shout to prove your worth. You show it through how gracefully you rise above the noise. Let your silence speak for your strength. Let your focus become your freedom. And let the space once occupied by gossip be filled with peace, purpose, and power. Because when you stop repeating the story, you stop reliving the wound. And that's how you truly heal, not by dragging their name through the mud, but by walking away clean, clear, and completely unbothered. That's not just self-control. That's self-respect. And it's the kind of energy that toxic people will never be able to touch again. 9. Master the art of silence. Impeccable stillness is power. There's a kind of silence that isn't passive. It's not weakness. It's not fear. It's power, quiet, deliberate, commanding. When dealing with toxic people, silence becomes your greatest weapon. Not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you're choosing not to be controlled. They thrive on your reactions. They feed off the emotional energy you release when you defend, explain, or retaliate. But when you stay silent, when you remain still, you deny them the one thing they want the most, your attention. Toxic people are desperate to provoke you. They push, they poke, they create drama designed to force a response. Their goal is not resolution, it's control. And when you react, even with the intention of standing up for yourself, you hand over that control. But when you master the art of stillness, when your expression doesn't change, your voice doesn't rise, and your peace doesn't break, they panic. Because you've just revealed the one truth they can't handle. They have no power over you. Silence is misunderstood in a world obsessed with noise. People assume that silence means agreement or submission. But real silence, the kind born from emotional clarity and mental discipline, is a message louder than any speech. It says, "You don't get access to my inner world." It says, "I see through the game, and I'm not playing," and that drives them mad. Because manipulation only works on those who give their energy away easily. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every insult. Some things are beneath you, and that's not arrogance. That's alignment. There was a moment I'll never forget. A toxic person in my life went on a tirade, passive-aggressive comments, baiting questions, snide remarks meant to provoke. I looked at them, calm and unshaken, and said nothing, just silence. They grew louder, angrier, more frantic, and the more they escalated, the clearer it became, I had won. Not because I crushed them with words, but because I denied them entry into my peace. That day taught me that silence doesn't make you small. It makes you untouchable. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed in speaking only when it served a purpose. Not every word deserves a reply. Not every challenge deserves a response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. And that is freedom." Imagine being so rooted in your purpose, so anchored in your sense of self, that you don't flinch when people throw their chaos at you. Imagine being so at peace within, that no one else's storm can shake your calm. That's the level of mastery we're talking about. When you choose silence, you're not running, you're rising. You're elevating above the level of manipulation, above the noise, above the game. You're sending a message, not to them, but to yourself, that you no longer engage with people who try to dim your light. Your energy is too sacred, your mind too focused, your heart too grounded. Of course, there will be moments when silence is misunderstood. People might label you cold, distant, or even weak. Let them. Their judgment is not your responsibility. Let them fill the silence with their own projections while you sit in power. Untouched. You're not here to explain your boundaries. You're here to protect them. You're not here to correct every false narrative. You're here to build a life so clear, so true, that no lie can stand against it for long. And this is where stillness becomes revolutionary. In a reactive world, stillness makes you rare. In a chaotic world, stillness makes you magnetic. While others chase validation, You're cultivating presence, while others get tangled in drama. You're growing in discipline. That's what silence gives you. Space to choose your response instead of being hijacked by your emotion. When you master the art of silence, toxic people begin to disappear. Not because they change, but because you no longer feed what keeps them close. They thrive in noise, in confusion, in conflict. Remove that, and they have nothing left to latch onto. They move on to someone else who hasn't yet discovered what you now own. Impeccable stillness is pure power. Stay quiet not because you have nothing to say, but because you've already said everything through your calm, your boundaries, and your detachment. Let your silence echo in places where noise once lived. Let your stillness shake the ground where their chaos used to rule. That's the level of peace they fear, and the level of power you deserve. 10. Reclaim your inner narrative. Rewrite the story they try to control. Toxic people rarely attack you directly. Instead, they plant seeds, subtle phrases, hidden implications, a raised eyebrow here, a guilt trip there. Over time, it's not their voice you hear, it's yours. Warped by their manipulation, they don't just try to control your behavior. They aim to hijack the story you tell yourself. They want you to believe you're not enough, that you're selfish for walking away, that you're broken, flawed, unworthy of better, and if you're not conscious of it, their voice becomes your internal monologue. That's how they win, not by shouting, but by whispering just loud enough to rewrite the script in your head. But here's the truth. You hold the pen, and it's time to take it back. There's a story we all tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, and what we're capable of. Toxic people know this. That's why they embed themselves deep, not just in your life, but in your self-concept. They don't always scream insults. Sometimes they mask manipulation in concern. I'm just looking out for you. You're being too sensitive. If you leave, it's on your conscience. And while those words might seem small, they carry weight. Over time, they shift your lens. You start doubting your instincts, shrinking your worth, questioning your decisions. That's no accident. That's the design. But there's a powerful stoic truth that cuts through the fog. It's not the events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. You can't always choose what happens. You can't always avoid the betrayal, the criticism, the gaslighting, but you can choose how you interpret it, how you assign meaning to your pain, your boundaries, your choices. You can choose what kind of story you tell moving forward, and that choice changes everything. Rewriting your inner narrative isn't about denial. It's about truth. It's about looking at what happened and refusing to let it define you. They told you you were too much. Rewrite it. You are powerful, passionate, and whole. They told you that you were selfish for creating distance. Rewrite it. You finally chose yourself. They told you that without them, you'd fall apart. Rewrite it. Without them, you started to breathe. This isn't just mental fluff. This is the heart of healing. Because your mind will always return to the stories it knows best. If those stories are filled with shame and guilt, they will shape your actions, your relationships, your self-worth. But when those stories are rewritten with honesty, strength, and self-respect, they become your foundation. And from that foundation, you don't just survive, you rise. There was a point in my own life where I believed I was broken. That maybe I was too much. That maybe walking away was giving up. But I realized one day, That wasn't my voice. That was theirs, still echoing in my head. Long after they were gone, I had handed them the pen, and they were still writing chapters in my life. That's when everything shifted. I sat down, metaphorically and literally, and asked myself, what do I know to be true? Not what they said, not what guilt told me, but what I knew. And from that moment, I began to reclaim every line, every paragraph, every chapter. Your healing begins the moment you stop accepting the role of the victim in someone else's story. You are not a supporting character in their narrative. You are the author of your own. And yes, they may have written some painful pages, but you get to decide how the rest unfolds. Maybe the betrayal becomes the turning point. Maybe the manipulation becomes the lesson. Maybe the silence becomes the rebirth. Whatever it is, make sure you are the one writing it now. Toxic people want you to keep replaying their version of events. Don't. Every time you choose truth over distortion, clarity over confusion, you take back your power. Every time you affirm your worth instead of their doubts, you build a new chapter rooted in strength, not shame. And the more you do this, the more their voice fades until one day, it's just background noise, powerless, unwelcome, forgotten. Reclaim your inner narrative, not with rage, not with revenge, but with quiet, steady truth. Let your new story be one of courage, of clarity, of coming home to yourself. Because when you own your story, no one else can write you out of it again. And that is freedom. Conclusion. Toxic people don't always show up as enemies. Sometimes, they wear the face of a friend, a partner, even a family member. They chip away at your confidence, blur your boundaries, and quietly rewrite the story of who you think you are. But here's the powerful truth. You have more control than you think. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to explain yourself endlessly. You simply have to take back your power, piece by piece, through clarity, stillness, boundaries, and truth. These 10 principles aren't just tips. They are a roadmap back to yourself. Forgive, but remember the lesson. Limit their access to your energy. Disarm their drama with calm confidence. Walk away not in anger, but in love for your own peace. Surround yourself with people who lift you. Stop feeding gossip and protect your dignity. Anchor yourself in purpose. Let silence be your shield. And most of all, rewrite the narrative. Your story belongs to you. Toxicity loses its grip the moment you stop reacting and start rising. If these lessons spoke to something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to show you're reclaiming your peace. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe to the channel for more stoic tools to help you live stronger. Think clearer, and protect your energy with purpose. You deserve a life that feels like freedom, not survival. And it all starts with a choice, you.